Bum 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 ba-da-da-dum, bum ba-dum, bum ba-dum, ba-dum, bum ba-da-da-dum, bum 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 bum. What you do if you get lonely? Nobody's waiting by your side. Good morning, Miss Aradhya Nidhi Yaduvanshi. That's nice. Good morning. Can you hear me properly? I hope I'm audible. If I'm audible, then we will begin the show that we deserve. If I'm audible, let me know. And then we will begin the show that we deserve. We deserve it. This bird's nest on my head. Very awkward. मेरा left ear से oh god. Hey, this is not a place for tinnitus questions. This is thinker's frequency. Or treatment. I've already shared the treatment in those videos. पूरा अच्छे से मैंने सारी दवाई बताई हैं. I have explained the entire treatment. Everything. Right? It's there. Pinned comment है, उसको पढ़िए. So that's that. I guess everybody can hear me. So I will begin the show that we deserve. It's gonna be a short one today because it's a very slow day for news, apparently. Nothing much happening in the world. Nothing much at all. Folks on LinkedIn, can you hear me? Let me check. Yeah. I'm audible. I'm audible on YouTube. So let's go. The show that we deserve. Let's begin. Bum 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 bum. Hello everybody, welcome to Thinker's Frequency. We're having such a good time. This is the peak of human civilization. We're working so hard, doing such good work for ourselves, our parents, our kids, our siblings, our husbands, our wives, our friends, everybody. Well, not other people's husbands and wives, I hope. And just when we thought things couldn't get any better, like they couldn't possibly get any better, well, they just did. Things just got a whole lot better, ladies and gentlemen. Now we have Thinker's Frequency, our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. So let's continue with our journey of reading between the lines, things that are especially interesting and important in the world of business and finance. Let's go! Oh, but before we go, we've got to follow a tradition, right? You know the tradition? You know the tradition of the simultaneous sip, right? The sacred and sweet tradition of the simultaneous sip. And all you need for the simultaneous sip is a cup or mug or glass or tank, a chalice or stein, a canteen, jug or flask or a vessel of any kind. Pour it with your favorite liquid. Today I'm having lemon tea. And here we go. Oh my god. Beautiful. Sublime. Let's take it again. Lovely. Lovely. You know what the simultaneous sip says, right? You know what it says? It says that you are not alone. It says that we're in this together. And that's such a beautiful thing to say. You know, we make the world a little less lonely. Mr. Chirag Patil says, "Hi, we can hear you. Good morning, Mr. Patil. I missed your few episodes on live but caught up recorded sessions. Really inspired by your consistency where I'm not able to consistently listen, but you are able to consistently do the live." Well, Mr. Patil, it is quite a task to be honest. You know, waking up very early because I've been a night owl. I'm intrinsically inherently a night owl. I used to like sleep at 6, sleep at 7, wake up at 11, 12, and then work. And because of this live stream I have to like wake up at 5:30, right? And it's not easy. It's pretty hard. However, uh, as I've learned that this entire process is just extraordinarily rewarding. It's just next level, you know. I always used to read. I've been reading for 15 years straight, right? 15, no, 13. Yeah, 13 years. However, my understanding of things has radically improved in the last 49 days now because of this discussion, because of what we talk about, because of how we think. This whole thinker's frequency thing has really helped me. And today I was genuinely tempted to, let's say, sleep a little more, you know, and take the show at 9 a.m., let's say, because a lot of people have requested me to change the timings, do it in the evening, make it late. But I said no, it's not wise to do that because it's the perfect time, you know, 8 to 9, and then you can begin working like 9:30, 10, and then you can keep working, right? It's easy. So it becomes a routine, and then I feel less lonely, as I told you, as you must have heard in those sessions. People feel less lonely. Like I get messages, they're like, "I feel so good when you say that you know what the simultaneous sip says. It says that you're not alone. It says that we are in this together. I feel a bit calm." And I'm like, this is great. This is great. And all thanks to Scott Adams, sir. I should give him all the credit. Always give him all the credit. He's the one who inspired me to do this. He does this. So I learned it from him. He's been doing Coffee with Scott Adams, where he essentially does this every morning. Now, US morning, of course. And he's been doing that for like 10 years, come rain or shine. And 10 years, almost no holidays. Almost no holidays. 7 days a week, 10 years, and where he's discussing everything, discussing thinking models. And, you know, in those sessions, he's barely taken an off. Now he has cancer. So, why I started uh, Thinker's Frequency was that he announced that he has a disease and terminal illness, and he might just be checking out of this domain sometime soon. And I was so sad. I was really sad to hear that. And I thought, what can I do to continue his legacy? You know, what can I do as a tribute to Scott Adams, sir? And I thought Thinker's Frequency. You know, I'll just carry on his tradition. So the whole thing of that, you know, all you need for the cup, a mug, a tanker, chalice, a stein, that bit is his. And I recently talked to him. So I've been talking to him, and he's very kind to respond. And I said, "Sir, I'm gonna close 50 episodes of Thinker's Frequency." And I was like, "Thinker's Frequency, nice sound," you know. So that's that. Now he has like 10,000 people every day listening to him live. I have at any moment of time some 8 or 9 people, you know, 5 on LinkedIn, 5 on YouTube, something, 3 on LinkedIn, 3 on. So 6 to 15 people. One time we peaked at like 23 people at one moment. But that doesn't matter because even if it's just 2 people, right? It's great. It's great, right? So moving on. Thank you so much for the encouragement. I really value it a lot. Uh, the big news today. Today is a very slow day of news. Not much happening as far as the world is considered. But whatever is happening is also very sad because the Air India report came out, and I don't want to talk about it. It just makes me sad. However, I will talk about something related to it. So, years ago, I read a book called Built to Last. Built to Last is a book written by Jim Collins where they outlined 10 uh, extremely successful, uh, you know, companies. So, what their thesis was, what makes companies built to last? What makes companies last a long time? And they did a very big research on the differences between companies which didn't last and then lasted. And then they were like, but let's not talk about companies which didn't last and lasted. Let's talk about companies which lasted and which were the good ones among them, right? And in that book, they outlined 10 stories where they associated gold medals with silver medals, and they highlighted those built to last companies. Okay, now built to last, along with Good to Great and Great by Choice, these three books are written by Jim Collins. They are amongst the most, like, the best selling books in the business management ecosystem. So, management books, when you talk about management books or entrepreneurial books, Built to Last, Great by Choice, Good to Great, this trilogy is said to be the most important trilogy as far as books are considered, right? Management. However, I just want to say that that entire trilogy is a bunch of bullshit. It's a bunch of bullshit. And I'll tell you why. Because the reason why I'm saying is that why it's come to light is that Boeing is referred to as a great company in Built to Last, Great by Choice, Good to Great, and all the things that makes Boeing great, and why they continue to be great because the culture essentially is like that, and so on and so forth. And the way they've read Boeing and every other company is the way consultants read a company. When you look at a company from outside as a consultant, that's what you read. As an academic, as a researcher, as a management professor, that's how you look at companies like vision, mission, and all sorts of gas, right? All sorts of gas about what's supposed to be the guiding light, big, hairy, audacious goals, and so on and so forth. It's just, that's not what makes companies, you know? That's a very academic way of looking at things. And that particular book, when you read that, when you read something in depth, and when you read three books, it actually changes how you think about things, and how you read things, and how you start looking at your own company. And these books, I'll go as far as saying that these books will harm you as an entrepreneur. They'll not just be not good, they'll not just have a neutral effect on you, they will harm you as an entrepreneur. Because if you read this shit, you know, you're gonna start looking at your company like an academic professor, like a consultant, like a management student, you won't look at your company like a daily fight that it is. And I would hereby recommend everybody to avoid Built to Last, Good to Great, Great by Choice, and things written by consultants in general, or let's say academicians in general. Whenever I read a book which is written by academics, okay, which is written by professors, management professors, and so on and so forth, whenever I read anything by those guys, my instinct, my fundamental heuristic is to just avoid it and read it thoroughly, and then find out how it doesn't work. And it almost always doesn't work, because these people have no skin in the game. Their job is to write a book. Their job is not to build a company. But there they are advising you on how to build a company. So you basically getting an advice from Jim Collins, who's never run a company, about how to run a company or build a company, let's say, right? The only company that he's built is this book, this consulting practice of advising other companies on how to build a company. Well, if he was sharing a book about that this is my job, this is how I do it, that's great. But all these readings, academic readings of the situation, that's just sure short way of killing your company. And it hurt me as an entrepreneur. I can personally say that uh, it basically hurt me. I would like to point out an exception, The Pyramid Principle. It's a great book by a consultant. Though it's more about how to communicate and how to run, not how to run a company. Well, consultants are great communicators, absolutely wonderful communicators. So I'm not surprised that a consultant wrote a book about communication and turned out to be a good book. I'm not surprised about that. My thesis, what I shared, was very specific about companies. Now, you know what not to read, or let's say, you've been cautioned, right? You've been given a word of caution against the kind of books that you pick up. The question is, what is the kind of book you should actually read? You know now what not to pick, but what is the book which you should pick? And that for that, I have a very, very good advice, and that is reading an autobiography, reading a book which is written by a person who has built everything from grounds up and who is just honestly sharing his story, even if he is not a good writer. Okay, that is a great book. That turns out to be very, very valuable. Very valuable. Why? Because just imagine a guy who has worked hard, and has been very lucky, and is grounded, is intelligent, is somehow modest about his own thing. When he's sharing his story, he's only going to do it for two reasons. Number one, it's legacy, right? He wants a legacy outside his company. He wants to share his story. He wants to, tell us how and what things happened, right? Number one is legacy. Or number two, he's just wanting to teach people and share the lessons from his story. So, legacy should scare you. Okay, if this guy has written a book, maybe he's just trying to paint himself as a hero, right? Hagiography or something. But even if a guy is sharing something from his perspective, it's much more valuable because it's his truth, right? Now, I've read so many autobiographies and I get to know where this person is sort of lying about his, uh, lying about his story. But even then, you know where he's lying about, right? It's so transparent when somebody lies in their story. But it's very difficult to decipher the lie in a consultant story because he doesn't have any clue on what happened there. He's just studying it, right? So even if you read somebody's barefaced lies, overall it's a much more rewarding experience as far as uh, learning is considered. Mr. Patil says, though, which were the best biographies you have read? I too like to read them, so would love some new recommendations. Good point, Nishant, about lying. Thank you, Mr. Patil. So, I have great, great recommendations as far as autobiographies is considered. I love autobiographies. I love biographies, and you tell me what's the kind of biography you want, like in which industry, and I'll share that biography. So, the best biography or autobiography ever, essentially one of the best, is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's basically the first biography you can read, autobiography, because uh, because it's such a great book. It's not about being a business book. It's not a startup story, even though it is the origin story of Nike, right? But it's a human story, and it's shared with a sense of humor, right? I believe sense of humor is key. Like if you can make somebody laugh, and if you can laugh at difficult situations, it's just the best thing you can do, right? That book has a lot of humor. And that book is just so extremely well written that it's an entertaining book. It reads like a novel. It is a non-fiction book, but every human story is essentially a movie, right? And that book is like a movie. So Shoe Dog is the number one recommendation for somebody who wants to just begin reading, right? Somebody who wants to start reading. And it's like, which book should I pick up? It should be entertaining. It should not bore me. It should be funny. It should be emotionally charged. It should be dramatic. It should be like a movie, right? Beautiful movie. Shoe Dog is that book. And then, there are like a lot of these books are autobiographies and biographies because that's the kind of books I prefer. I recently read Art of the Deal, the autobiography of Donald Trump, Mr. Trump. It was an interesting read. It's very funny, right? I Before that I read The Money Trap, which was the autobiography of Mr. Alok Sama, who I also interviewed. And then I read a lot of books, recent ones. But yeah, Shoe Dog is a good place to start. Mr. Chirag Patil says, "Thanks for sharing. I had bought it a few years ago, but didn't read it yet." You had made a great purchase, Mr. Patil. You did very well. It's a great book, and whenever you get a chance of reading it, you would love it. The thing about books is, the thing about literature, the thing about movies and art in general is that we don't choose them, they choose us. It's about when you are so lucky that a good book will hit you when you want to be hit by something like that. Let's say if you were reading Shoe Dog at a very bad time in your life, or let's say if you're just not interested in reading, or if you're whatever, it suddenly changes your game, right? It gives you that perspective. But if you began reading that book and somehow you could never find time for it, you could never make time for that book, so is it you or is it the book? Now I like to think that these things choose us. This art, these situations, these literature, yes, so these things choose us, these movies choose us. So right now, just a few days ago, I was going through a particular phase in my life, and when my friend, she just randomly, so we keep searching for movies, we are huge movie buffs, and we've practically watched every English movie now ever made, like since 1960 or something. So we started searching for Japanese movies and just foreign language movies. We watched German movies, we watched a lot of movies. So she just recommended, like, hey, what do you think about Still Walking? And I read it and I'm like, yeah, this could be interesting, let's do it. It was a Japanese movie made in 2008. Okay. It just changed my life. It just changed my life. It was so beautiful, right? So these things choose us. Now, why didn't I watch Still Walking before? I'm such a huge movie buff. I should have known. I should have watched it. But I couldn't. I didn't. It's not me. It's the movie that chose me. It's like something I like to believe. Obviously, it cannot be proven. Mr. Patil says, very true. Power of Now hit me exactly when I needed the most. You're right. You're right. Moving on. So Boeing story. Whatever Boeing did, now they're saying that it's human error. Even though in the recordings it says, did you switch it off? Why did you switch it off? He says, I did not do that. That means the plane essentially, did that, but they're just saying it's human error. There's nothing to do with Boeing, and it's just they're washing their sins, man. It's very sad. Moving on. Family offices are finding a sweet spot in hotels. So family offices are investing in a lot of hotel chains, hotel deals, and family offices are behind 54% of all hotel deals in the first half of this year. Now, why do you think family offices are investing in hotel deals so much? What do you think? is the reason for that. This means essentially that family offices are essentially looking at the hospitality industry to have a very, very safe run in the times to come, because the safest bet comes from these family offices. They are not very risk taking in general, you know. They invest in stable assets. You know why Indian private capex is not picking up? Because because they just don't want to put money where it even has a slight risk of not making it, right? So they would invest in the safest assets possible. And if they believe that hotel chains look very if they're putting money in hotel chains now more than ever, maybe the hotel industry could be looking very safe. When I say very safe, it doesn't mean that it's going to yield a lot of money. So it's not like these deals are going to lead to blockbuster outcomes. No. These deals are going to lead to stable outcomes. You know what? That's stable outcomes. So that's what's happening. Hotel transaction volume was up 340 million from 337 million in 2023. 337 to 340 million. That's not a big jump, but half of it's coming from family offices. So foreign investors are not looking at it as much. Indian family offices are looking at it. That means stable, low yield but stable rise is something that can be anticipated. Moving on, Google acquires $2.4 billion windsurf deal. They're gonna bring in windsurf as a part of the chief of windsurf is gonna work with DeepMind. Uh, Now that why the acquihire thing? Because acquihire thing has some lesser regulatory overhang. You know, when you acquire a company, especially in this setting where AI is happening and so on and so forth, it turns out to be slightly complicated because of many issues like antitrust, competitive, and so on and so forth. But acquihire sort of turns out to be a safe deal. So they've done a $2.5 billion in an acquihire deal where they're essentially gonna take over. This person's CEO is gonna lead the Google DeepMind initiative. This is yet another transaction in the AI space. Just yesterday at Viewers Thinkers Frequency would know, we discussed about how Anthropic was getting more money from Amazon. We already know about OpenAI's turf. We already know about Facebook, how it was basically acquiring Scalar for $14 billion. We know about all of these companies, right? So Amazon going with Anthropic, Facebook going with Scalar, Google, Windsurf, OpenAI trying to do something else with some other startups. So heated, very, very heated market of AI. Foreign countries travel may see some policy change. Says Mr. Tushar Tiwari. I'm sorry, you'll have to give me a little more context than that. So yeah, what we were talking about is that this particular scene, the deal follows months of startups discussions with OpenAI to sell itself in a deal that could value it at 3 billion, highlighting interest. So OpenAI was trying to buy, this particular startup, but just Google has essentially taken it. They just went under the, they just swept it off the carpet. So this is happening a lot. There was fake news, which is still trending, by the way, that Facebook Meta guys hired OpenAI engineers for $100 million. Now, a lot of people thought and believed in that fake news, and that fake news has sort of circulated. Now it's become a part of the lingo that 100 million people, 100 million people, and so on. Turns out that nobody hired anybody for $100 million, but it was still a lot of money, like a 20 million, 25 million. 25 million is like 1600 crores, right? 1700 crores. So it was still a lot of money. However, it was not, 160 crores, 170 crores. 200 million is 1700 crores. Sorry about that. I'm bad with zeros. right? So, but a lot of action is happening as far as AI is considered, because what you're essentially looking at is something that has never happened. Now, every time a technology change happens, people think that this has never happened before, right? But how many technology changes are really like that? You know, not many, not many. Internet, that was definitely a paradigm shift. Now, people thought that blockchain was going to be that paradigm shift, but it wasn't really. People thought a lot of things were going to be that paradigm shift, right? But they were not really. But AI is a paradigm shift of the scale of industrial revolution, right? And you're seeing so much of this happening that it's just mind boggling. The scale of it is mind boggling. And Mr. Peter Thiel really said it very well. You know, he said it, he said that AI is, I would say AI is roughly like internet in the 1990s. And what happened with internet in 1999 was you never knew which company was gonna make it, right? The impact in terms of AI should be equal to, or perhaps even more than internet. But if you picked up on internet stock, let's say in 1999, if you were picking on a stock of the internet company, which one would you pick? Right? The safest internet stock to pick on would be, let's say, Amazon or Google, right? Now, Amazon, when it IPO'd, the stock went up to 200, then went down to $4 or something, $10, right? And then it couldn't reach that initial level for like 7 8 years. So Amazon IPO'd here, then everything crashed. Then it took 7 8 years for Amazon to come back to those peak levels of 2000s. That's what he said about AI, as that could be. So even though AI is gonna change everything, you don't know which company essentially gets the fruit of the economic success that this paradigm change brings. You know, that cannot be clear. So even though it's a lot of things, there's a lot of thing happening. One thing is pretty sure, that it's broken the monopoly of internet of Google and Facebook. Now you will say that sure, Google is fine. You know, Google's monopoly is broken. Everybody used to search on Google. Now they're just chatting with OpenAI. I understand that. I understand that. So lower search volumes, everything goes bad for Google, because 80% of Google's revenues and profits, almost all of it comes from Google search. Everything else doesn't make anything. So Google makes money from search. And if OpenAI and Microsoft are being able to kill that search business, right? Reduce their volumes. Uh, Google is done, right? Google is very, very unsafe. So that part is very clear. But Facebook is also in trouble. Can you guess why? Can you guess why? Why do you think Facebook is in as much trouble as Google is, as far as this particular paradigm shift is considered? What do you think about that? Mr. Bhavik Shah says, please share a live list of movie and book recommendations. I do that. I do that almost every day, Mr. Shah. Uh, yeah. So the reason why Facebook is in as much trouble as Google is because if people start chatting with OpenAI and other bots, you know, the time they spend on social networking reduces. And if the time spent on social networking reduces, that's it. That's it. That's the entire domino falls, right? Everything goes for a toss, because the entire market of Facebook and TikToks and so on and so forth, uh, it just essentially depends on how much time people spend on their app, right? And if people start talking to AI for hours and hours and hours, and they are doing that, somebody has declared an AI bot their girlfriend, somebody has proposed to their AI for marriage, some weird shit is happening, right? As far as this AI play is considered, they're chatting for hours, like 2 hours, 16 hours, and so on and so forth. So if that is happening, you know, time is taken away from Google. Sorry, Meta. Right. So my friend recently made a company called Era by Rumik AI, and they've been able to raise a lot of money in just a very short period of time. And that's what they do, right? Conversations with an AI. So all those incels and losers who can't like have real conversations, uh, they they have like an average chat duration of 2 hours talking to an AI girlfriend, so to speak. So somebody talked to Ira for 16 hours. So that's obviously bad. So when he was starting this company, you know, some time ago, I told him to not do this. I said that this is basically going to ruin the social fabric, because if let's say somebody is not being able to make conversation, somebody is lacking social skills or lacking whatever, somebody is feeling lonely, the last thing that person should do is talk to an AI, right? Because it's going to make him even more lonely. It's going to reduce his conversation skills even further. It's just going to drive him to isolation at the speed of thought, right? And it's just gonna get worse from him. So when he shifts away from that AI and looks at the world, it'll be totally pathetic, right? But then the conversation was around like, if we don't do it, somebody else did. And I was like, yeah, that's what Nazis said. Right? The people who were following orders, we're just following orders. If we're not gonna do this, somebody else is gonna do it. So it's not cool. But obviously, it was just a conversation. They went ahead and built the company. They've raised a lot of money, $6.5 million and stuff, and they are doing well. People are talking to Ira for hours and hours, and all that time is time stolen from Instagram, Facebook, and whatever social networking style. So even if Ira doesn't make money, okay, let's say Ira doesn't make any money at all, how will it make money? Because these people who are talking to AI for hours, do you think they are people who can afford to pay Ira? No, right? They are not the people who will be ever able to pay Ira, right? Or anybody else, let's say friend. But the time that they were spending on Facebook goes away. So Facebook's loss is the economic value that Era has generated, or startups like Era will generate. So Era might not be making money by itself, but that's not the only way to quantize somebody's value, right? Somebody's economic value. Era's value could be in terms of the money it had forced Facebook to lose. You understand? How is Flipkart a company? Why was Flipkart a company? Why is Flipkart a company? Right? Flipkart never made money. It's still losing like $1 billion a year. It has always lost money, like billions and billions of dollars Flipkart has lost over the course of 15 years, ever since it started essentially. Flipkart started in 2007, I guess, right? So 2007, yeah, essentially 16 years, right? 16 or more than that. 2007, 18 years. So 18 years, Flipkart has never made money. Yet it could grow in value, and then eventually Walmart bought it. And now Walmart is losing money on Flipkart. Why? It's not because Walmart wants to make money from Flipkart. That's not the only way to look at Flipkart from the perspective of Walmart. It's about how much money uh, can it stop Amazon from making. Because Walmart is like a $500 billion company by revenue. It loses $1 billion in India, it doesn't matter. But it matters if it stops Amazon from capturing India, you know, for the future. So that is the market right now, and it's pretty crazy, pretty crazy. AI friendship, Mr. Tushar Tiwari says. You're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. Moving on. Not many people understand that perspective, however. If you talk to anybody, they'll be like, data, maybe it's that, maybe it's that. No, there are different ways of looking at things, you know. So somebody's loss is sometimes very, very important to keep pumping money into something. So DDA has slash charges for commercial properties. DDA is Delhi Development Authority. It's basically the real estate regulatory body, in India. Oh, sorry, in Delhi. So DDA has been slashing commercial properties charges. Two kinds of charges. So one is that they've made it easier for commercial units to combine, and then there's another thing. So authority DDA has slashed amalgamation charges for commercial properties to 1% of the circle rate to 10%, from 10%. So earlier 10% of the circle rate was the amalgamation charge. So let's say you buy two properties and then you combine them together, you wanted to pay extra money, right? That goes from 10% to 1%. And additionally, authority has reduced multiplication factor for auction of commercial properties to 1.5 times the circle rate from the current rate of twice the circle rate. So multiplication factor will also come down through to 1.5%, as far as commercial properties is considered. Auction. So auction price is gonna come down. So this is basically attempt to spur the real estate commercial business market, in Delhi. Now, why do you think this has happened now? Why do you think this has happened now? Can anybody guess why this has happened now? You're right. You're right. I heard you. I heard you. Because of the slowdown, right? After 3 years of real heavy lifting, a real flying of, the real estate sector, it's now looking at a slowdown. And India doesn't want it. So they are going to do everything they can so that it doesn't slow down, so that things just keep moving somehow, right? Because real estate is sort of very important as far as national story is considered. A lot of consumption essentially happens with real estate, is allied to real estate. So a lot of economies have grown around real estate. And that has also led to problems, by the way. So China's growth all this while was built around real estate. And then essentially it just tanked. Everything tanked, right? Because they just had an overcapacity of real estate. There are places where there are more houses than people. They built so much of real estate that it's just becoming impossible to sell. And that's why you had the crash of Evergrande and so on and so forth, a lot of real estate companies going down. That's why you had it. So over-reliance on real estate is bad, but real estate should not stop. That's also true. By the way, something very important about the consumption story, which Indian analysis doesn't get right now. You know what? Real estate loans are the biggest enemy of consumption story. You can understand why, right? You can understand why. So let's say you take a home loan, okay? Once you take a home loan, you're stuck for like 10 years paying EMIs on that loan, right? You bought a house and every month you like spend 15,000-20,000 rupees on your loan. And that is the money which you could have spent, right? Which you could have just spent and bought something, and which would have been great. However, all that money goes to just two parties, the real estate player and essentially the bank. So a big enemy of consumption story is a real estate loan. If no home loan, then what option should one consider? Says Mr. Nirav Raval. What do you mean, Mr. Raval? Are you talking about, let's say if I don't take a home loan, should I rent it? Is that what you're asking? I don't understand the question. Well, if you've got to buy a home, you'll have to take a loan because it's become impossible to actually, uh, you know, uh, you know, it's become impossible to actually buy a home with some free cash. Not nobody has that kind of free cash, not even the rich people. So you have to take a loan. But if you take a loan, you're gonna get buried with it. Mr. Bhavik Shah says that money could have been spent on rent too. Yes, but then you wouldn't have spent all your money on the down payment as far as that is considered. So you would have some savings left as far as the rental play is considered. You understand the difference? So if you buy a home on a loan, uh, you are essentially paying a lot of your savings. You're depleting your savings at once, and then you're tied to pay the whole loan thing, right? So that basically dents your consumption story by a mile, right? So if you're saying that no down payment was required and you had a lot of free cash and you just took a loan because of tax reasons, that's okay. But not many people do that. In India, it's a different story. That's what you answered it. Thanks. No problem, Mr. Raval. No problem. Let's move on. This should worry people though. That if DDA is trying to, DDA should, obviously, every regulatory body should deregulate, should slash charges, should lead to private investment. However, now the timing is suspect. This means there is some stress as far as the real estate scene is considered. Moving on, dragon in the driving seat. Well, we've talked a lot about this, so it's no surprise to viewers of Thinkers Frequency. But right now we have 10 people, so some of them might just be new users, new viewers. Chinese companies are gonna screw everybody, the automotive industry. They are on a killing spree and they are so far ahead of everybody that it's just impossible. Like European companies like Volkswagen, Volvo, and a lot of good companies, they always assumed a leadership that whatever they do, it's gonna get followed up. Even Japanese companies, right? China has left all of them behind because of everything that it has done in the last 25 years as far as cars are considered. Okay. Now, India's share of EVs in new car sales. You know how much it is? You know how much it is. We've talked a lot about this. Come on, don't be shy. Say it. Say it. Say it. What is the percentage of EVs as far as the whole car market is considered in India? It's 2.5%, right? 2.5% going to be 4%. Guess China's share. What's China's EV share in its entire car sale market? Just guess. Quickly, do it. It's 50%. 50%, Mr. Nirav Raval. You're right. Congratulations. 50%. So, and the size of car market of China, they sold like 2 million cars last month. India sells 4 million cars in a year. So they sell like 3.2 crore cars while we sell 40 lakh cars. So they're just huge, right? The scale is extraordinary. And what they've done is they've incentivized the entire manufacturing play for 20 years now. So earlier, their companies were very backward, right? They were laggards. But nobody stays a laggard for a long time. People catch up. People just keep learning and they catch up. And when they catch up, is it me or the audio reduced for everyone too? Well, please confirm if audio has reduced for you, because I wouldn't want to be sharing this very, very important thing at a bad audio, with a bad audio. So please confirm the audio situation. Mr. Patil, can you hear me? I can listen clearly. Mr. Patil, perhaps your system. Sorry about that. Uh, so Mr. Tushar Tiwari asks, what is the EV share of the two-wheeler market in segment in India? Well, that's a good question. That is a good question. It's not a lot. So, in terms of EVs, you have three players, right? TVS, Bajaj, Ola, and Ather. So I could search for it and give it to you, but if you just analyze it, right? Just think about it analytically. India sells like 15 million bikes in a year. Okay, that's 1.5 crore bikes. Okay, now EVs are Ola, Ather, TVS, and Bajaj, these four top floor players. How many bikes are they selling? Ola is selling somewhere around 25,000 bikes or something of that sort in a month. Now, Ather is at 14,000 something. And these are number 3 and number 4 players. TVS should be at 35,000. Bajaj should be at 30,000 or something of that sort. So at max, what you're looking at is some 1 lakh or 2 lakh sales. That is a million EVs in a year, million and million and a half. That means uh, it's basically 5 to 10%. Now, this is the analysis which I thought, because I didn't know the number. Now, let's check out the number. Share of EVs in two-wheeler India. Okay. Uh, Indians' electric vehicle sales crossed 2 million. So I said 1 million and they say 2 million. Electric vehicle industry. 5% of two-wheelers. How good was that? How good was that, folks? What do you think? I need some comments on that. I need some comments. I need some comments. I need some praise for that. Please, come on. Come on. Come on. You've got to. You know. No comments? No comments for that? That was pretty good, right? That was pretty good. Don't you think? So that's how we have become. That's how good we've become as far as this whole analysis play is considered, right? If you've been watching Mr. Tushar Tiwari, Mr. Chirag Patil, I know you, Mr. Raju Kumar, you know, I'm sure we all did this, right? This is how we've grown as far as the entire analytical play is considered. And this wasn't possible a few days ago. This has happened because of you, because you join me, and because we talk and we read and we discuss and so on and so forth. So moving on, now the situation is that China isn't in the catching up space anymore. China is essentially looking at leading. So they've, and also it's not just EVs. They control the entire battery ecosystem as well. So I really feel bad for Japan, as far as the whole play is considered. I love Japan. Japan is not an adversarial country. They could have. I wish this innovation came from Japan, so it wouldn't have been bad for India. However, this, you've got to give Chinese the credit, the administration, for giving the industry such a spurt. So 20 years ago, this industry didn't even exist in China, but they kept supporting their companies. BYD happened, now Xiaomi is happening, and so on and so forth. They just kept supporting their companies. They just kept favoring their companies, and now those companies are essentially ruining the European market. They're ruining the American market. They're obviously ruling their home market. They're coming to India. Everybody is scared. This is, by the way, a very bad time to hold any automotive stock, I think. Because anyway, cars are not selling, and then you'd never know what happens as far as China is considered. MG Hector has been in India with JSW. JSW and BYD's here as well. 4 cars from BYD, 4 cars from MG Hector, and there are gonna be more players. So it's gonna be very tough for Indian companies to fight because those cars are genuinely very very ahead of whatever we've been used to seeing, not just in India but even in America. So they're screwed, right? And Tesla, even Tesla is basically beginning to struggle as far as the whole China play is considered. To Bitcoin or not to Bitcoin? In the age of Trump, crypto is gaining currency with Pakistan embrace of it having clear strategic angle. How long must India wait? So these people, the crypto enthusiasts, these Bitcoin guys, they always say that India should become a Bitcoin country and so on and so forth. Now my question is, why doesn't Indian regulator thinks like that? Why don't governments think like that? Do you know what is their perspective? Uh, can you think about that? Do you have an idea? What is the government's perspective on crypto? The only thing government has any control over is the supply of money. Money is the only thing. No, not tax. Not tax. Tax comes later. You can tax Bitcoin. But if you make Bitcoin the legal tender, or if you start acknowledging it as a currency, or let's say as something legitimate, what you're essentially looking at is relinquishing of the monopoly on the supply of money. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would know how RBI controls liquidity, right? Whenever system has less liquidity, it reduces interest rates so that whenever system has more liquidity, it conducts VRRR VRRRs, essentially variable reverse repo rate repo, right, where it starts incentivizing banks to to give its money to them so that they could bring it in interest, so that liquidity comes down. Whenever there's a crunch of liquidity, it starts flushing the system with liquidity, because supply of money and money in general, cash, that is the government's responsibility. Like how much cash exists in the system. So they reduce the lending rates so that cash flows, right? If people can take easy loans, cash will flow. They increase lending rates if inflation is too high. If it's too much of cash lying in the market, inflation is gonna rise, right? Things will become more expensive. So they increase the lending rate so that it becomes difficult for people to take a loan. Then when the money supply becomes less in the market, inflation comes down. So the government's job is to manage inflation, manage growth, manage cash. But it can't have that kind of control as far as Bitcoin is considered, right? So if it does that, it's basically you're asking the government to let go of supply of Bitcoin. Of control of money. Would any government want to do that? Sure, I mean, some places have proved to be good. Like Mr. Bhavik Shah is writing, Bhutan now boasts of a stash of Bitcoins worth 1.3 billion. 40% of country's gross domestic product. That's correct. Bhutan has $1.5 billion worth of Bitcoin. El Salvador has accepted Bitcoin as essentially the legal tender. So El Salvador's president Bukele, who is like a legend, you should read about Bukele. El Salvador used to be the world's most unsafe country, and now it is the safest country in the Western Hemisphere. So essentially, it's safer than America. It's safer than the entire Western Hemisphere, right? Even Europe, because of Mr. Bukele. So amongst many things, what he's done is he's been a very, very big advocate of crypto. He's made crypto, Bitcoin, a legal tender in El Salvador to attract a lot of these Bitcoin players, right? However, El Salvador is a very small country and it doesn't have a lot of control as far as money is concerned anyway. What happens to a country like India? People are saying Pakistan has also liberalized Bitcoin. Who's Pakistan? Pakistan is a shithole, right? Pakistan doesn't have a lot of money. Pakistan basically lacks money. That's why it's looking at Bitcoin. because all it ends up doing all the time is essentially borrowing dollars, right? It lives on debt. It's a very bad system for it. So it wants to escape that debt. It makes sense for Pakistan to essentially look at Bitcoin or look at any other thing which helps up, escapes it from the clutches of the modern financial world, because it's screwed in that regard. But it doesn't make sense for India to essentially look at that, because the ramifications of that could be just crazy, could be crazy, so that's the reason why the Indian government is still not looking at that, looking at Bitcoin how people want them to look at. So back in 2017, viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember when my company was essentially going to merge with a Bitcoin company, a crypto company. That person said in 2017, no, it was 2018. Yeah, in 2018 he said, just wait 6 months and crypto will be legalized in India. It was 2018 March or something, and that's what 2018 September. He said by the next year Bitcoin will be legalized in India. मैं भी यही हूँ, आप भी यही हो, देख लेना. मैंने बोला ठीक है, देख लेना. And right now it's like 2025 July, and it's still dekh lena. So it's just a cost benefit. You've got to do the cost benefit analysis, right? Because nobody controls the Bitcoin play. Nobody can. That's the play. And that's why all the illegal transactions, the best use case of Bitcoin as of now has been facilitating illegal transactions. That's the top use case of Bitcoin as of now. So Bitcoin or crypto, cross-border, and so on and so forth. Moving on, Trump sets 30% levies on EU and Mexico from August. So 30% levies on EU and Mexico. Why Mexico? Because of fentanyl. So viewers of Thinkers Frequency would remember we talked about US getting raided by a drug called fentanyl by China. And it's coming from both borders. Canada from north, Mexico from south. And US, the youth of US is like Urta Punjab right now, right? They're taking fentanyl, they're dying. 30,000 plus people died just, and many more actually. Those numbers are not perfectly representative of what happens. So US says they've not done enough as far as fentanyl is considered. They're helping with the border, sure, but they've not done enough. China is sending fentanyl through Mexico and Canada to US. And US can't even talk about it. So a lot of people say, why doesn't India take on China? Why doesn't India talk about how China essentially fought against them, because we are scared of China and so on and so forth. No, it's not that. It's just strategically makes sense to not admit something as big as this, right? And it just strategically makes sense to not pick a direct fight with somebody like China. Even US is not doing that. US knows that China is flooding their country and ruining their youth with fentanyl, a proper drug which is killing people, and TikTok, a proper drug in the digital domain. But they're still trying to figure out a way to deal with those things, right? And you want India to pick a fight? That's just poor business decision. Musk's AI, XAI, Mr. Musk's XAI is valued, eyeing a $200 billion valuation in future funding. Mr. Musk has denied this. He said we are adequately funded. However, some reports say that they are basically looking at raising even more money at a $200 billion valuation. No surprise, as we talked about everything that has happened as far as this AI thing is going on. Moving on, GIVO. We've talked a lot about Kolhapuri Chappal, the geographical indication tagging, and the Prada case, so I won't repeat myself. But Prada essentially stole Kolhapuri Chappal design at a Milan fashion festival. A lot of social media backlash happened. Prada apologized. Now Prada is coming to Maharashtra, talking about tying up with the Kolhapuri artisans on its line and stuff like that. So that was the long story. This led to a lot of questions and debates on IP, intellectual property, and how you deal with it, how to treat IP when something is traditional, it's not exactly a product of a particular player. what happens, right? So that was the conversation. I'm not gonna, we've discussed it in depth, so won't repeat myself. However, it's pretty awesome that it happened. They've taken a quote of Ravi Raj Kamble. He says we take like 6 hours to 12 or maybe 2 days to make a Kolhapuri chappal. We are very happy to sell like uh, some, few thousand pairs in a year, and it takes just 500 to 1000 rupees per piece. So we are barely putting food on the table. So when we heard about Prada selling a Kolhapuri chappal at 1 lakh rupees, it was a cruel joke. Well, I understand, sir. I understand. It's very sad indeed. So they found a violin, which was essentially a very old Stradivarius violin, 17th century stuff, uh, lost because of the whole World War situation. Now some Japanese guy has it, and then a guy said, "Oh, this is that 1700 violin," and the Japanese guy is saying, "Don't harass me," because now he has that violin, right? And if somehow it becomes a cultural piece, then he'll have to relinquish it because he won't be able to sell it and he won't be able to keep it, and he wants to keep it. So these things happen a lot. I read the not the autobiography, the biography of Mona Lisa. Sorry, Leonardo da Vinci, and in that biography, I found out that the whole art market, art sales market, is a scam. So every year they find out some painting related to Leonardo da Vinci or his students or his dog essentially, and they say like this particular painting looks like it's from 1560, 1620. It has those things, and it's just a painting lying in some cafe, right? $10, and they're like, this no, this is some, you know, the friend of Leonardo da Vinci who also worked with him, he made it. And that $10 painting becomes like $1,000 painting. All of these guys get together, start ruminating on a painting, and then it becomes very valuable. So that happens a lot. You would be surprised on how these things are evaluated, because nobody knows what happened, right? Nobody's been to the 50, but they have methods, and a lot of that is gray, and that's what happens. So that's what I have for you today, ladies and gentlemen. It's 9/9. I had a real fun talking to Mr. Bhavik Shah, Mr. Patil, Mr. Nirav, Raval, Mr. Tushar Tiwari, uh, everybody. It was beautiful. It's always beautiful. With this, we come to the end of the 49th episode of Thinker's Frequency. Thank you all for joining. Our daily mental workout, our daily dose of insights and analysis, which don't lead to paralysis right before we punch in. I wish you a beautiful day personally and professionally. And I'll see you tomorrow. Same place, same time, hopefully. Bye bye.